I am live. Sweet. And I have not done a live stream, guys, for quite a while. It's been a long time since I've done a live stream. I moved out here to the country, and my connection is not to get this thing. Have a decent internet connection out here. So here's what's going on. I'm supposed to be on Wednesday night. Jordan and I record the Duck Gun podcast live stream. If you guys have not had a chance to check out the Duck Gun podcast that Jordan Fromer and I do, it's on all of your podcast outlets. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, we've got 138 episodes. And so we always record on Wednesday night, but Jordan called me and he came down sick, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. And honestly, I'm not quite sure why I have these headphones on because I don't have to hear anything. Let me take these off because I'm just used to doing it, I guess. Can you guys hear me all right and everything? Audio coming through okay, and the video. So anyway, let me know. There's some people dropping in. Let me know if the audio sounds okay and how the connection is doing. One shot kill. I'm doing all right, man. How are you doing? So Jordan and I record our Duck Gun podcast on Wednesday nights. But tonight I got a call from Jordan, and he is really, really ill. And it's not oak on his nuts. So he actually has an infection. He's going to have to go into surgery tomorrow. So he's had this infection like 3 or 4 different times. He's had to have multiple surgeries on this thing. I was so excited. We were supposed to record with Chris Jobman, Flatlander Kennels, and we were supposed to record also with Josh from Outdoor Limits. And we were going to do a back-to-back deal tonight, but we couldn't do it because Jordan's got an infection. He's going to have to go in surgery tomorrow. So prayers for Jordan. Hope he does okay. I asked him, I said, could this be like really serious? It's just like any other infection. If it gets into the bloodstream, it can be serious, but I don't think there's a huge chance of that taking place. So I haven't done a live stream for a long time. I'm like, I want to talk about waterfowl with you guys. So I popped on, put your questions in here, and I would love to. I'll hang on as long as I want to. I think I'm actually going to run an Instagram live stream at the same time. I'll just put it up here, and I can take questions from either side. So let me go live on there as well, and then we'll get this thing started. Any questions that you have? Boom. Checking connection. Let's see how that looks. Where am I at? I got to turn it around. There we go. I am now live on Instagram and on YouTube, so I can take questions from both places. That's cool. But we've got some things going on. I said, for those of you who didn't hear here, if you have not had a chance to check out Duck Gun Podcast, we've got 138 episodes that we've put out. Go to Apple or iTunes or any of the podcast locations and check those out. What's up, Instagram? We are live here and on YouTube. Put your questions up. I would be happy to get at them. We're just going to do a Q&A here. So that's what we're doing. So throw up those questions. But I was so excited to have Chris Jobman on. I felt really bad because Chris Jobman, he is the owner of Flatlander Kennels. That's where I got little Georgie. Georgie, come here. Come here. Let's let Georgie say hi to you guys. Come here. Come on up. Come on up. Here's little Georgie. Here she is. So I got Georgie from Flatlander Kennels, and Chris Jobman Chris Jobman's a freaking stud. I went up there, got Georgie, came back, and he was going to come on and talk to us tonight about e-collar training and about force fetch. Because I just got an e-collar for little Georgie, a Sportsman 425. And we were going to talk to him about e-collar training, force fetch. And so I was really, really excited about that. And then we're going to do a double header. We're going to talk to Josh from Outdoor Limits right after that. So I was pumped. And that went down and everything because Jordan's actually in here, old oak nuts himself. And this illness he's got has nothing to do with oak on his nuts. It has nothing to do with that. He actually does the infection. So as you guys throw up questions, I will answer them. But thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate, or Jose, I appreciate that compliment. And anyway, we were going to talk about e-collar training. We were going to talk about force fetch because little Georgie, I just trained her on the e-collar, and she is doing great, man. I'm telling you, having that e-collar, I've never had an e-collar, for a dog with a dog before, with Izzy, or my dog Vera before Izzy. And having this e-collar with this little dog, man, it is phenomenal because she was sitting, she was healing, she was going to play, she was doing all that stuff. But once I got the e-collar, it's like, boom, she sits and she heals and she places. It's like it speeds up the process because, like Chris Jobin told me, the whole point of the e-collar is trying to get the dog to, they're trying to beat the little zap. And I've educated myself about the e-collar. The setting that I'm using on Georgie, you can sit there and put it on your fingers and you could hold it there all day. It doesn't even really hurt. But so Georgie's trying to beat that zap to sit, to heal, to place. It is a phenomenal tool. It's a phenomenal tool. Let's see if we've got, I think we've got some questions here. Instagram or YouTube, put those questions up there. Somewhere in Wisconsin, my buddy Chase says, Wisconsin went to a 2 hen limit on mallards. Oh my gosh, really? Still only 4 mallards, but I was surprised to see the switch. Probably won't change my outcome, but interesting, huh? So I'm assuming there was 1 hen and then moved up to 2. Well, you know, I guess I'm not ultimately that surprised about that because all of the research shows that, you know, shooting hens really doesn't matter. So I'm not surprised about that. Question on Instagram, how's Izzy doing? Izzy is doing awesome. I got her on this medication, and actually I was training Georgie I've got a pond like right outside my house to train Georgie in, and I've got Izzy on this new medication, and she was out there doing water retrieves. She acted younger than I've seen her act for a long time. So Izzy is doing really, really well. Izzy's doing great. Wild Nation Outdoors, what was the best way you learned to use your calls and feel good about using it during hunts? Oh man, calling is just a progression. I consider myself a mediocre duck caller at best. But I feel like one of my strengths with calling ducks is when to call, when to get quiet. I do what's called calling on the corners. And when I see a duck, I will let them know we're there. And if they're acting interested, I'm going to go pretty quiet. And as they swing through, I might give it a little feeder calls. And as they're going away, I try to do just a set of about 5 quacks right at the point in time which can turn them. And I think the timing in duck calling is really, really important. I think it may actually be more important than the actual sound. I've seen ducks come into a lot of really bad duck callers, but the timing is really, really, really important. So it's to me, it's more of a timing issue than anything else. Alex on Instagram says, how often do you hunt in Gardner? We've hunted some of the same spots you have. Alex, actually, Corns Pond is in Gardner. So that's the only time I hunt in Gardner is when we're hunting Corns Pond. It is right outside of Gardner. Let's see what other questions we got. How's Georgie been doing with her training? Well, I mentioned that a little bit. Georgie's doing awesome. I just e-collar trained her, and I'm almost done with that. Actually, I was waiting to talk to Chris Jobman today because he told me that the whole hit when his e-collar training is 2 weeks, and I'm so excited to talk to him today because I've done 5 or 6 days with Georgie, and I don't know what else to do. She's got it. She's sitting. She's healing. She's going to place. She's coming back. So I don't really know what else to do with Georgie on the e-collar training after 5 or 6 days. But if Chris Jobman says it takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. So I'm not sure what I'm missing on that. But she's doing great. She's doing fantastic. I'm getting ready to start force fetch, and I'm getting ready to start whistle training to sit. So I'm thrilled. She's doing awesome. And I see Josh Old Outdoor Limits. He joined it on live stream or over at Instagram. What's up, Josh? He and I actually, and my dad, and so we went on a white bass fishing trip. And there's a couple of videos coming out. He's got a video coming out on that, as do I. So we had a good time, even though we didn't actually do very well. How is Fumblemitz feeling? Fumblemitz is feeling great. He's doing well, actually. Fumblemitz lives right out the window out there. I can see his camper. Him and my mom live out in the backyard in their 5th wheel and do a bunch of traveling and stuff. And he's doing great. We were doing some work today. He's doing awesome. John says, bought the H12 because your reviews. That's a heavy pig and nice, stable. Any suggestions on accessories? Well, I would say if you think the H12 is heavy, then I think that you should try a traditional layout boats because the H12 is super, super light compared to your traditional layout boats. In fact, that's one reason we went to it. But if you want either kayak or layout boat that's going to take a couple dozen decoys and haul you and a dog, it's going to have to be 85 to 100 pounds. And once you get your blind attachment on it, your decoys in it, it does get a little bit heavy. Oh, and Josh Outdoor Limits just said the video went up today. I didn't realize that. So make sure after the live stream you go and check out the video on Outdoor Limits channel. It's our white bass fishing trip we went on to. And you know what? Here's one thing that I've learned about Josh in our time together. We hung out, the Flyways Collective. Now we've gone fishing together. And it appears to me that he has a golden touch. And I think in his life, okay, let me give you a couple examples about Josh that I've observed. He makes beer for the first time. You would think normal people making beer for the first time, it probably is going to taste like crap. Not Josh, it tastes great. He goes out, we go out fishing. We have a terrible day. All right, there's 5 of us. I catch 1. Elijah catches 0. My dad catches 0. Josh's brother-in-law catches 1. How many do you think Josh catches? Oh, about 8. And it appears to me that he's got that golden touch in life. And when he touches things, some people just kind of have a knack for whatever. And he appears to be that type of guy. It's like, I don't know, instant success. So he actually did pretty decent on the fishing trip and everyone else sucked. So it was Josh 8 fish, the rest of the 4 of us 2. So that's what I've kind of learned about Josh. But go check out the video of our fishing trip on his channel. I don't have mine done yet, but it will be soon. Other questions we've got. Have you bought a whistle for little G yet? Justin wants to know. I did, and I lost it. And that's why I'm haven't started whistle training yet, because I lost the stupid whistle. And I'm just being lazy because I want a specific whistle and I had it and I don't know where it is. So I didn't buy it. If you have any suggestions for a great whistle, I don't like the kind of whistles with the ball in them. And that's the kind that I had that didn't have one in it and I lost it. So I gotta buy it. Jordan says, how many days till duck season? I don't know, a bunch. Oh, Golden Boy says we can shoot 2 pintails again. Well, that's great. I have not shot a pintail drake in about 3 years. So I don't know where it doesn't really mean that much to me. But that is good. I'm glad. I like it when we have a 2 pintail limit. Ever do any hunting in Wisconsin? Cameron says, no, I have not. But I may have to get up there with old Jordan and do a little bit of hunting in Wisconsin for sure. I may have to do that. So put those questions up there. It seems like a lot of the questions are kind of geared towards little Georgie. And I love talking about her. I don't know where she went. Georgie is small. She's over there laying down. Georgie's mom was 55 pounds and her dad was 65 pounds. And so she's 11 months now. So a dog, you guys probably already know this, but labs and dogs in general at about 12 months, they have all their bone structure is fully grown. They're like about an 18, 19-year-old man. And then, if you notice guys, when they go to college, they start picking up that muscle mass a lot more. And if you look at it, like Golden Boy's a perfect example. When I started hunting with him, he was 18. He was very skinny. His muscle was his frame was exactly the same now as it was when I met him, but he's much more filled out. So that's kind of how it is with dogs and labs also. So Georgie is coming to the point now where she is pretty much full grown as far as her bone structure. And so she is small. She's a little dog, but she's going to be picking up muscle mass over the next year or so. But I am really, really loving her being so little. She's just the best house pet. She's extremely intelligent. In fact, today she got into the closet with her food, and I've got it like in a plastic bin. And I saw her take her little nose and put it right under like the lid of the plastic bin and just pry it open like a can opener and pop that thing open. And her little head went right down in there again. She's a smart little dog. She's confident, but she is not hard-headed. And so what I really want with my limited experience to train dogs, I want a really confident dog, and I want one who's not really hard-headed and listens, but not overly sensitive. And that's what she seems to be. I mean, she is confident, but she listens, and she's loving, and she's not hard-headed. So I am absolutely thrilled with everything about little Georgie so far, and I cannot wait. I'm going to do a Georgie vlog here in the next couple days. I think I'm going to show you some of the pond work I've been doing with her, and also I think I'm going to show you just some of the collar work I've been doing. Cameron wants to know, would subscriber hunts ever be a thing? It just depends. I did a subscriber hunt with Tim Cochran this last year, and he actually got on the best 2-day hunts maybe of my life. I mean, we were just absolutely slaughtering them. I don't know. I tend to really be particular about who I hunt with, and so hunting with just total strangers is not necessarily something that I'm overly, just because I tend to be a bit of an introvert when it comes down to it. And so the whole thing of just hunting with people I don't know doesn't make me that thrilled. But in the right case, in the right time, I will hunt with a subscriber. It just depends. It really just depends to me on the situation. There's Georgie right there. John says, how do you feel about jump shooting or floating down a river, popping what flies up? I'm perfectly fine with that, John. Non-power for sure, because you can't have them on. I'm perfectly fine with it. I've never done it. Foamitz has done it with my uncle Jim a few times, and a float trip where you're just sitting. In fact, Thomas is here, Virginia Outdoors Unlimited. He posted a video of them doing it on a river for geese. I thought that was a fantastically cool video, and I would have been right there beside him doing it if I lived in Virginia. So I don't have now. Would I trade the way I hunt for floating a river and popping ducks at flush? No, I wouldn't trade the way that we do it, because decoying them is just so much fun. But I have no issue if someone wants to float a river and pop what flies up. I have no issue with that at all. And if the chance arose and I could get in on a hunt like that, I would have no problem just doing it. Thomas, Virginia Outdoors Unlimited says, have you heard about the SCOP limit decrease? First time I've ever seen a split season limit. 2 birds for the first part of the season and 1 for the second part in most states. That's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. No. We see very, very few SCOP in Kansas. In fact, this last year, Jordan and I were out laying on the ice. This is one of the last, in fact, it was my last hunting video my last duck hunting video. Or no, I didn't video. Jordan videoed it. I didn't make the video. It was my last duck hunt of the year. And we shot 3 SCOP on that day. And that was the first time I'd seen SCOP for about 5 or 6 years. So we don't see them very often at all. I was reading something Aiden had said, but that's really strange that they would break it out like that, where at the beginning of the season you could shoot 2 and then 1. I would really be interested to I'd be really interested to hear their reasoning. Surely they have reasoning as to why they would set it like that. That's strange. But I love SCOP. We just don't hardly ever see them. So I think the limit last year in Kansas, I believe Jordan and I looked it up, and it was 3, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Jordan, if you're still here, let me know. Oh, and there's old Tim Cochran. He's on Instagram live stream. I'm looking at my Instagram feed. Man, I love this little, where's it at? That little Kansas public duck hunting sign. And I love that sign. Just so cool. And you guys can probably see in my background, I've got these mounts over here, these 2 gadwalls. Let's see which one. Aiden shot one of these. Aiden shot this one. Aiden shot that one. And the thing that's so cool about that one is the line in the head. And I shot this one, which was an absolute beauty. And then Simeon shot the widgeon. I've taken a lot of crap for that widgeon there, because it's honestly, I'll show the Instagram followers better than this, but it's not a very good mount. It's just the head. The problem I have with that is that, first of all, and I don't know. We had a deal with the taxidermists. They sponsored the Duck Hunt podcast for a year, and it was kind of an unusual situation because we were contacted by a guy, and I gotta be careful how much I talk publicly about this, but we were contacted by a guy, and he's like, okay, I'll trade you mounts for a video. And then over the course of the year, I sent in, so then we attached them to the Duck Hunt podcast, and they were sponsoring both the podcast and kind of the YouTube channel. And the deal was that we would promote them on the Duck Gun podcast. And then also, I would make a video once I got the mounts and everything. And so I got them. This widgeon was supposed to be flying, and the guy that I made the deal with, he ran on some hard times and was no longer at. He didn't even do the work. It was someone different there that did the work. And anyway, that's about as much as I'm going to say about it. I never ended up making the video for some reasons, but I really, really, really like the Gadwall mounts. I like the Gadwall mounts very, very much. I think they're cool looking. But the widgeon mount, I'm not really a big fan of. I don't think the head looks very realistic, and it was supposed to be flying, and obviously it's not flying. So for what that's worth, those are my 3 mounts. I can only show my Instagram followers this, but I've got a little sharp-tailed grouse mount over there too. And I've got a deer, so it's a 10-point deer that I found out at one of my very favorite marshes. So I've been asked to do a video on my mounts, and I don't know if I will or not, honestly. I don't know. We should all kind of try. But let's get some more calls or some more questions up here. Thoughts on brand of silos, Big Owls versus Dive Bomb versus Real Geese? I don't know. This is probably stupid to say. I have always been the type of person that, like when I was in high school, if everyone is doing one thing, then I don't want to do that thing. It's like as a fad sweeps through, I become kind of anti that. And that's a little bit how I feel about Dive Bomb. I feel like it's like really trendy. The guy that does Dive Bomb, and their products are great. Their products are absolutely great. But the social marketing guy at Dive Bomb is awesome. He's phenomenal. And it's kind of like it's like the cool waterfowling thing to do is to use Dive Bomb. And so it kind of turns me off to it because it's like everyone's using Dive Bomb and Dive Bomb stickers. And it's like, you guys remember, and if you have one of these, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but you remember the tribal bands that got, like in the early 90s, guys started getting like tattoos that were tribal, like barbed wire around their bicep and everything. And it became like such a big fad, like everyone was doing it, and so many people started doing it that it kind of became seeming like cliche a little bit. Dive Bomb is kind of like that in a way. It's like it's so trendy and everyone's wanting to use it and everyone's using their stickers, and that I don't know, that just kind of turns me off a little bit. So I've got White Rock decoy silhouettes, and I love those. And they were a sponsor of the Duck Gun podcast last year. And I've got 5 or 6 dozen silhouettes and socks, and I love them. So I would put White Rock in that equation too, with Big Owls, Dive Bomb, Real Geese. The only one I have experience with White Rock, and I love them. What else we got here? Browning A5 versus Benelli SBE3. I don't have experience with either of those guns. I know Fumbles has a Benelli Black Eagle 2, and it's been a phenomenal gun. And Jordan loves the Browning A5s, and that's been a phenomenal gun. So I would say if you have a Benelli or a Browning, I don't know. The only semi-autos that I have any real experience with are the Stoeger M3000, because Aiden's got one, and I've had a chance to shoot it and seen it and used it a lot. And the A300 I've got, and I really like that a lot as well. So Tim Cochran says Dive Bomb versus parachute pants. Excellent example. Okay, so for those of you that are you're probably gonna have to be 40 years old to get this. There was a point in time in the mid 80s, I'd say, that breakdancing became really, really popular. And I mean like mainstream popular. And I'm not talking like watching breakdancing videos. I'm like, my friends when I was in 5th and 6th and 7th grade would get together and they would take cardboard and put cardboard on a floor, and they would all wear parachute pants, and they would get together and they would try to breakdance. And it was like this thing, breakdancing was a thing. And there was like, if you have not seen these movies, you got to check it out. Breakdancing, or it's Breakin', I think is the name of the movie. And there's Breakdancing 2 Electric Boogaloo. And those were like mainstream movies. And so I recoiled against that as well. I was like, no, I'm not buying parachutes and I'm not going to try to do a head back spin on the cardboard. I would go and watch. And if I'm being honest, there was sometimes in the mirror that I would try a little breakdancing, but everyone was doing it. And it was actually before, it was a little before MC Hammer. Someone put Hammer time. It was actually a little before that. MC Hammer was like, I think 90-ish. Like MC Hammer was late in my high school, like sophomore, 88, 89, 90, 91. That's kind of MC Hammer time. The real breakdancing phase was kind of like 84, 85, 86. Like the Royals won the World Series in 85 and I was in 7th grade. So it would have been like 83, 84, 85 when the breakdancing was a thing. And I think, nah, I'm not going to wear parachute pants. I'm not going to do the breakdancing thing. So very good example, Tim. All right, let's see. I'm missing some questions here. Let me try to, because I'm just talking about breakdancing. Because, everyone wants to hear about breakdancing. All right, I'm scrolling for some questions here. And Josh says that he prefers the full bodies over silhouettes and silos for goose hunting. I would certainly defer to him on that question because we don't do a lot of goose hunting, especially field hunting. When we goose hunt, we're hunting ponds and we're hunting sandbars on the river. So as far as field hunting for geese, in fact, I'm trying to think if in the past, I don't think I've ever been on a dedicated goose hunt in a field, or I've been on 2 field hunts, both for ducks. I've never been on a goose field hunt that I can think of. I'm trying to remember. So I just don't have experience with that. But I know on the sandbars and at Corns Pond where we use those. So in Corns Pond, when we use the silhouettes and silos, we put about a dozen goose floaters out, a couple dozen duck decoys out, and then along the bank line, we'll put the floaters and the silhouettes, and they've worked really, really well out there. Thomas from Virginia Outdoors says, how are water conditions looking for next year in your areas? Looking just fine right now. We are 3 or 4 inches above normal rainfall amount, but that's okay as long as we don't have flooding, and we don't. So rainfall amounts are just fine right now. And, this last year was really, really trying because we had this flood come in I think April of last year. And in Kansas, here's how it works. And I've talked about this before, and you guys may know this, but in Kansas, a lot of the duck hunting is done around the reservoirs. So starting in about the 20s or 30s, Kansas started building a lot of reservoirs for recreation and to control flooding. And so they went in and they used eminent domain, and they just said, this land is ours, and they took it over. And they built a dam, and they made these lakes. And as a river, there's always a river that flows into these lakes. They took a river system and just dammed it up, and they created a reservoir. And the last one they did in Kansas, actually, which was Hillsdale Lake, which is close to me, was 1980s. They haven't done it for a while. They made a bunch of these. And so when you get a river that flows into this lake, when you have lots of rain, the elevation of the lake goes up and down, up and down. And so as the river flows into the lake in those areas, when you get flooding, you get a lot of back pools and a lot of duck habitat. And so the state then started creating marshes and building pumps on them. And so a lot of the hunting that you see in Kansas is done on those marshes that are on the front side. Typically it's going to be your west side, because Kansas is extremely elevated, because you start at Kansas City and you go to Colorado, you're going uphill into the mountains. So Kansas drains really fast. So most of the rivers some of them will run a little bit north to south, but it's a west to east. So most of these marshes are on the northwest side of your reservoirs. And so as long as all of that area doesn't just flood out, it's fine. So when we got this flood that came in April, the lakes were about 18 to 25 feet high. And so this water came in and just sat on all these marshes where we duck hunt. And you have sediment deposits. And I mean, the water sat in there from April, May, June, July, August, September. They didn't get that water out of there until October. So when the water finally came down and you went to these places, it was like it looked compared to normal years like an atomic bomb went off. I mean, no vegetation, just silt mud everywhere. It was just terrible, terrible environment. And so what happened was, at least from my experience, most of the ducks stayed either east or central of where we were. And so the duck hunting around here was a lot more of a struggle. Now, if you're more of a, we're not really my crew, we're not really field hunters, and there's multiple different reasons for that. We rely on public marshes to do most of our hunting. So if you were a dedicated field hunter, you could still find some good birds and some good hunts. But for us, we're typically marsh hunters and river hunters. We really, really struggled. So this year, we're hoping that we get more of a natural, normal precipitation amount, and we can get all of these moist soil vegetation to grow up in these marshes. And around here, it's smartweed, and they will plant some millet. But in my part of the state, it's pretty much smartweed. Smartweed is like duck crack. They just absolutely love it. So the long way around to answer Thomas's question, it's the habitat right now looks fine. I've been out and looking around it, and I was surprised actually when we were out fishing the other day. We saw some of the marshes and they have not drained any of the water, and so I'm not quite sure why they're continuing to hold water. When right now what we want is we want all of that spring growth to start. So I'm not quite sure why they're trying to hold water right now, but everything's looking just fine. Everything's looking good to go. Other questions? Oh, we got someone from Russia. Thanks, man. I have no idea how to pronounce your name. I don't even know what some of those letters in your name are not even letters in my alphabet. Thank you for watching. I would love to see some Russian hunts. On the podcast, we had Russell Ramsey on, and he is an international duck hunter. He has built a guide service, and what they do is they guide you all over the world. So they have these connections. Some of them are in Russia, some are in Argentina, some of them are in Asia. And if you're rich, you can pay these guys to go on a trip over to Russia to duck hunt. And man, if you guys got to check out that podcast, Russell Ramsey is a very, very interesting individual. In fact, he's starting his own podcast with our buddy Ben. And so really interesting stuff. I would love to go somewhere like Russia or Argentina and duck hunt. Steel shot versus bismuth, fire pirate outdoors. Steel shot versus bismuth or tungsten. What is your favorite type of pellet to shoot? I've never shot tungsten. When I started doing a lot of waterfowl hunting, it was 1990, 1991. And Ramsey Russell, not Russell Ramsey. Thank you, Jordan. Ramsey Russell. When I started waterfowl hunting in 1990, 1991, they had just made the switch from lead to steel. And when we started getting into mallard hunts those first few years, we were having a lot of problems killing mallards, lots of crippled mallards. And so my dad actually started doing a lot of research on it and started reloading his own shells. And my dad's got a lot of chemistry. He almost has a master's in chemistry, not quite. And he's got a lot of chemistry education, and he's got a master's in biology. So he got into all the numbers of it. And he's like, okay, here's the deal. Here's the problem that we're running into with the steel shot is it's not fast enough. Because I mean, I'm telling you, compared to now, we were crippling so many birds. And so he got to mess around and making his own shells, and he increased the speed of them quite a bit. And I don't know what his loads were running as far as speed. I mean, now loads are super fast. But back then, I believe some of the loads were like 1250 feet per second. 1350. I wish he was here to because I'm sure he would remember exactly. But these loads were slow, so he got to creating his own waterfowl loads, and I mean the cripple numbers for us really dropped. And then more of the studies came out that says, well, here's the deal with steel. You want to increase the speed because steel is lighter than lead. That's why lead or like bismuth or tungsten is so effective. And the example I use is like, okay, if you take a wiffle ball bat and you take a aluminum bat and you swing them at the same velocity, which one do you want to get hit with? Do you want to get hit with a wiffle ball bat, or do you want to get hit with the aluminum bat? Well, you want to get hit with a wiffle ball bat because it's lighter. It's not going to pack the punch. It's the same thing with steel versus lead, bismuth, tungsten. Those heavier metals. That's why some of these shells are called heavy metal, because they're literally a heavier metal per ounce. They just weigh more. And so steel was coming in at such a slow speed that it wasn't fully killing these ducks. So the research came out and like, look, if you increase the speed on the steel shot, then you're going to better be able to kill ducks than not as good as lead, but better than like a 1250 shot per second. And so my dad started reloading them, and then all the research came in, and they got much better. The steel loads that we shoot now, and if I'm going to shoot a steel load, I really like the federal shell. That's what we've shot for years and years and years and years. And I do. Now we switched over to Boss, and I'll get to that. But that federal load's a good load. It's over 1,500 feet per second. And last year I shot 101 ducks, and I only lost 2. And so that kind of tells you I was not having problems losing birds because steel wasn't being lethal. Now, I'm very, very careful in my shot selection. So, I mean, and that's really important with steel. You really need to be a little more careful about your shot selection, because you're going to wound a little bit more. So as the steel shot manufacturers became better and better at making faster loads and quicker burning powders, because that's one thing that you get too. If your powder has got to burn before it gets to the end of the barrel, because if it doesn't, then you've got unburnt powder as it goes out, and it's just an ineffective shell. That steel that is up over, I don't like, if I'm going to shoot steel, I want it to be a 1,500 or above. 1,450 minimum. I'm not going to shoot anything under 1,400 or 1,450. And that federal is about 15 to 1,550. So that's a good shell. And we got to the point with my dad's reloads, we stopped reloading them because the shell manufacturers were making such good steel shells that were so fast that it wasn't really that big of an issue. So this last year with the Duck Gun podcast, Boss Shot Shells became a sponsor. And so we shot this last year Boss for the first time, which is bismuth. And my numbers are actually versus the last year steel that I shot, where I shot 101 ducks and lost 2, versus the bismuth where I shot, gosh, I don't remember how many ducks I shot last year. Something like 83, 85, I don't know. And I only lost 2. So my loss numbers were the same, but I will tell you this. With the bismuth, when I pulled the trigger at 30 to 35 yards, in between 30 and 40 yards, I could tell that I was crumpling ducks like I wasn't with steel. And there were several birds that went down wounded that I shot at them at about 35 yards. And I thought to myself, if I had been shooting lead, I would be chasing that bird and maybe losing it. So I could absolutely tell the difference between steel and bismuth. I've never used tungsten because tungsten is really, really, really expensive. It's even more expensive than bismuth. But if you have the pocketbook to use a bismuth or a tungsten versus steel, you should absolutely do it, because in the long run, you are going to effectively and cleanly kill more birds with tungsten or bismuth than you are with steel, because it's heavier. And those loads are not slow loads. That bismuth, correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, if you're still on here, I believe that bismuth load that we're shooting was 1350, which 1350 is fine if you're shooting something that's a lot heavier. I mean, you go back to the example again with steel or a wiffle ball bat versus an aluminum bat. I mean, I can hit you really hard with a wiffle ball bat and you're not fine. It doesn't take near the speed for me to hit you with an aluminum bat for it to really, really hurt. Now, those examples are very vast compared to the difference in weight between the different metals, but it's the same concept. If you're using bismuth or tungsten, you don't need those shells to be as fast, because when they hit, they pound them. So my number one choice would be bismuth, because I used it this year and I loved it. But these that being said, these steel loads that they are making these days are fantastic loads, and you can kill plenty of ducks with those steels, but you just have to be a little more conservative with your shot selection, because it's just not going to hit quite as well. Any other questions? Well, if you want to put up a question or two more, I'd be happy to answer it. Tim Cochran says that 1250 was very common when steel came out. Yeah. And that was a big problem. 1250 feet per second with steel is a big issue. It is not fast enough. Not fast enough. Well, thank you guys for being on here and asking questions and talking waterfowl. Like I said, I was really, really disappointed that we couldn't do our podcasting tonight. And I had been wanting to get on and do a live stream. I hadn't done one for a while. So thank you so much. And prayer out for Jordan for his surgery tomorrow, that everything goes well with that. Because like I said, this has been a reoccurring infection with him. And I know that he is really, really getting tired of dealing with this. He's had like 3 surgeries with this thing. So let's, put a little prayer out for him. And hopefully that this, worst case scenario, that we want this infection to stay in that spot because we don't want it to get into his bloodstream. So Jordan is a wonderful human being. I have had a chance to really, really get to know him since we started the podcast together. And we have spent so much time talking and actually now hunting together. Great individual. And hopefully everything goes well with his surgery tomorrow. So Jordan, let us know, because we care about you and we want you to be okay. So thank you so much, guys. I think I'm going to sign off now. And man, waterfowl season's a long ways away. But before I jump off, if you got this cold front coming in, I know it's coming into Kansas. Let me tell you what to do. I did this last time. I'm doing it again. We got a cold front coming in. It's going to be low of 28, high of 44. When these cold fronts come in, get your butt out to the marsh and pretend it's fall. And you're going to see ducks. You're going to evaluate what's growing up. And when I did this last time, and I put Instagram stories on it, I got to know this marsh better than I'd ever known it before. So we got a cold front coming in. Get out there. Put on your hoodie and your banded jacket and pretend it's fall, because it's really, it's fun. It's fun. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you later. Go right now if you want something to listen to. Duck Hunt Podcast. Check it out. Bye, guys.